How's it rockin', Dween Nation? This is the Dween Sports Podcast. We're about to get underway. But before we do, we'd love if you could like, comment, subscribe, or share. We are posting weekly sports content, and we want to build up the brand that is Dween Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy. Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Paez, alongside Genoa Agudelo. And today's a super interesting episode. You can only do it once a year when Black Mondays happen, when the whole season's happened, when head coaches have been fired, and now there are vacancies for specific NFL teams. And we are here to predict which coach, which current coordinator, anybody is going to land themselves a head coaching role in the next coming days and the next coming weeks, even the next coming hours. But we're here to discuss all of them. We'll dive into each of those teams after we see how you're doing today, Genoa.
Yo, Dween Nation, I'm doing good, Justin. This is the time of year, Justin, where teams and franchises that are not in the playoffs are usually they make decisions that are able to turn, their franchise around. More like, 12, 13 years ago, where Andy Reid, he was kind of let go out of Philadelphia, went on to Kansas City, and, look at the things he's doing. Who can forget, 2, 3 years ago, I believe, where it was Dan Campbell's time. I think he was on the Saints coaching staff. And then he was hired as a Detroit Lions head coach. Look where he's now. And who can forget just a few years ago too, where it was D'Amico Ryans there taking over for my Texans. So this is the time of year where franchises, they're not in the playoffs, but in a certain way they are, right? They're in the playoffs and a coaching kind of playoff where they kind of fight to find their next leader for their football team. And so this is the episode there that if you're kind of if these are one of your teams there, Justin, it's like, who's going to be the guy to take our franchise? Luckily, Justin and I know the script, so we'll be able to kind of get it to you out there in Dween Nation.
Yes, definitely. And to me, for those teams where you're looking for a coach, it's a bit of hopefulness. There's like, this can really change a franchise. If you look at, like you mentioned, D'Amico, even sooner than that, last year, Dan Quinn got hired for the Commanders gig. He is now, a playoff winner. Mike McDonald had a very solid season. Also, Jim Harbaugh made the playoffs with the Chargers. But then you could even look on the flip side. Gerard Mayo got fired. So there's goods and there's bads. Unfortunately, or I guess fortunately for Patriots fans, we already had one head coach hiring before this taping of this video, which was Mike Vrabel to the New England Patriots, which is a spectacular move. Obviously, he's a former Patriot, used to coach the Titans, used to be a coordinator on the Texans. So he's been around the AFC, and he had good years with Tennessee, had multiple playoff runs, no championships, of course, no Super Bowl appearances. But I think this is a good spot for him. I think a lot of people were shocked when the Titans let him go. So he spent a year being a consultant for the Browns, but now finds himself with the Patriots again. And before we dive into all of our predictions, what are your thoughts on this hire?
Justin, I absolutely love it there. Mike Vrabel was the head coach of Tennessee. They were able to, snag AJ Brown there, and they kind of turned Ryan Tannehill for a couple of years. Like it's a really reliable quarterback there. He was really decent in fantasy for those couple of years. Throwing it to AJ Brown, and I know things didn't work out with Corey Davis there. I know you remember Corey Davis, Justin, and
Yeah.
so they was also able to push Derrick Henry to win an offensive player of the year award. I think he led the league in rushing a few times under Mike Vrabel. And they were able to make an AFC championship there against the Chiefs. I think this was in 2020 in those playoffs. Able to, shock a Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. MVP Lamar Jackson. And I think the next year, I think they were able to lock in a number one seed. But I think or a few years later, and I think that's when Cincinnati came in on their Super Bowl run and went in there and shocked Tennessee and Tennessee. So other than that, Mike Vrabel has always been good. He was a guy that was able to utilize Derrick Henry. Obviously, Derrick Henry is a future Hall of Fame running back. But I think now in New England, there are some talk there that maybe they might get rid of Drake May in a surprise trade. I've been seeing some theories there, but if they were able to keep Drake May there, keep Ramondre. I would actually like, Justin, if they were good, go ahead and get Ashton Jeanty. I feel like I've been calling him Derrick Henry Jr. or Baby Derrick Henry during the college football season. So why wouldn't Vrabel be able to draft him and use him and have his second coming of Derrick Henry there? And I think that maybe in the second or third round they can get some weapons there. for Drake May. And so I like this coaching hire there. He is a little bit of a hometown discount there. He's a former Patriot. He caught touchdowns in Super Bowls there from Tom Brady, and he went to Houston. He was a part of our Texans coaching staff for the first couple of years of Bill O'Brien's tenure. And then he ended up being a better coach than Bill O'Brien, going to Tennessee and shocking us all. So I definitely love this hire, and I know Patriots fans do too.
Yeah, like if you look at his time in Tennessee, like he never had a star quarterback. He did have a star running back in Derrick Henry, but I'd never say like his defenses were super star studded. Yet he always had a really really good rushing defense.
Yeah.
He was always missing cornerbacks in Tennessee, but he comes into New England with Christian Gonzalez, and obviously he has a history of being with New England. I think another interesting one is that he might hire Josh McDaniel as the offensive coordinator, who had really good years with New England as the coordinator. Obviously, he wasn't a great head coach, but but he did have a head coaching year where Josh Jacobs had his career
Yeah.
season a couple years ago. So I would really like to see McDaniel as back in the OC role. But that was the rumor going around as well. That's not official or anything. But if I had to give the Patriots a little quick grade, I would give them an A on that hire.
Agreed.
I don't think he's as good. Like the best to me option in this cycle is Ben Johnson, which no, they didn't get him, uh, but I still think Vrabel's right up there. So, but let's dive into these predictions, and we're going to start with a team that to me has really all the tools. They were just led by the wrong guy and a guy that we discussed all year that we were not on board with, and I'm talking about the Chicago Bears. You got Caleb Williams. You have those plethora of wide receivers. Swift a solid running back, Komet a solid tight end, and then a defense that really stepped up this year and was top 10 hands down across the board. They get rid of Matt Eberflus. There's an opportunity for a new head coach to take the reins with a lot of cap space and also a franchise number one quarterback from the 2024 season. I want to get your take. Who do you think will be the next coach of the Chicago Bears?
Justin, there's two options here, okay? I'm going to go with one that's kind of a long shot, and that is the Commanders' offensive coordinator, Lincoln Riley. He is close with Caleb Williams there. He was his, I believe it was his coordinator there for some time until I think he had left, I believe. And I think when Lincoln Riley there, I feel like he is an offensive genius. I don't think he's a head coach per se, but I do believe that he does know what he's doing as far as calling plays. And I feel like, excuse me, I think with Lincoln Riley there, I think that he was his head coach, and I think that now that he's in USC, things in USC are kind of gone downhill, and I feel like they're really not going anywhere. There's the future USC. They kind of had a boring year. They were able to play um, well in their college football bowl. But other than that, I think that he could be a candidate. It is kind of like a long shot. But the one that I'm mainly picking here is Mike McCarthy. I think that whenever before he left Dallas, they were requesting an interview with him. But I do feel like all those years that he was in Green Bay, I think that Bears were able to that organization was able to see what he was able to do with Aaron Rodgers and transform that offense and be able to just have a dynamic passing game. And I feel like that kind of translates to what Chicago has. They've been set up really to have a really like high profile passing game. And I feel like they don't really run the football as much. I mean, they do have Swift there, but McCarthy historically hasn't really been a head coach to have like a strong rushing game. So I feel like he would really just like blend in Chicago there and to kind of have a really strong passing game. Not to mention when he got to Dallas, I think his first couple years they were able to have Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb. That year that Dak Prescott tore his knee, he was off to a hot start there. I think that was McCarthy's first year at head coach. And not only that, McCarthy knows how to win division titles there. And it's been a while, right? He won division titles in Green Bay, and he's won titles as well, division titles as the Dallas Cowboys head coach. And I feel like Chicago kind of suits him better than Dallas did. So give me Mike McCarthy. I feel like they did request him to interview him while he was under like his last week or two with the Cowboys. I feel like where there's smoke, there is fire. So give me Mike McCarthy.
I think McCarthy's an interesting one. I can't get a gauge on where I think he will land at the end of the offseason. But I just the way things turned out in Dallas, obviously it was kind of like seen long down the line that hey, he's not going to be the coach for Dallas. They brought him back last year, but it was like, really, is that going to happen? And so obviously it didn't happen. Now he's let go. I think he might. He is very tough. I could see it because they want an offensive mind. Um, and so that's where I could see your point. Where I also look at the offensive mind that I think is necessary for them, but I lean the best candidate, and I think it's Ben Johnson for the Chicago Bears job. The one the one hesitancy to picking him is that it's in division of the team he's currently part of in the Detroit Lions. But if you look at everything that roster has, it's golden, and they have cap space. And I'm certain that Chicago, they feel like they're a coach away, that they're going to give Ben Johnson the reins and everything he's been asking for. That's why he didn't sign with the team last offseason because he was like, I need more. I need more control over what he wants to do. I think Chicago will give him that. And, he's worked with Swift. He gets a franchise quarterback. He got DJ Moore, who you can do a lot of different things with. We know how much Detroit loves their motion. Roma Dunze is a young rising star. And so I think that's where I think the Chicago Bears gig lands with the best candidate. So I think that they might be a winner of the offseason without bringing in any new talent with Ben Johnson.
I don't know. I don't know. I like Ben Johnson, but we'll get to him for me where I think he's going. And I think the goat, has his
This
or
is
has his paws in something like that to get a guy like Ben Johnson. But I guess I'm gonna talk about another. I guess we're gonna go to the next team there.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think I'm gonna go in the Saints. Before we get to Ben Johnson, I'm gonna go with his fellow staffer there, his fellow employee, and I'm going to go with Aaron Glenn there. And I think he's going to go to the Saints there. I feel like with the Saints, yes, the previous head coach Dennis Allen was a defensive coordinator, but I think they kind of want to keep that defensive, swag that they've had all this years. I don't really think the Saints are looking and going an offensive route. I just have this feeling that they still want to keep, the defense there. And I think that Aaron Glenn is the guy that will be a head coach. And I think that the Saints, I mean, yes, they'll be potentially be picking a quarterback, but what if they don't? What if they kind of want to keep, Derek Carr at the helms there? They want to go with picking a defensive player. I feel like Aaron Glenn is the guy that you can pick a great defensive player there in the first round. And looking at these defensive players there, I mean, Justin, there is some talent there. I think was the guy at Penn State or the guy at Georgia.
Abdul Carter from Penn State.
Abdul Carter. See, I think that's a guy that can be picked really high there, and it kind of fits the Saints, piece there. I'm not sure if they're going to keep Chase Young there. I think he's pretty much out. They did trade Marshawn Lattimore, so I think that team, that franchise looking forward, is going to want to pick a defensive stud, and then they'll pick probably offensive talent around it. So I feel like now that being said, I feel like Aaron Glenn is the guy. He's led this rough and tough defensive unit there in Detroit. And he brings that energy, that spark. Not only that, both these coordinators with him and Ben Johnson, they're going to have this offensive scheme to them that they're able to implement and develop. And I feel like the Saints is probably going to be something like what my Texans did, right? They drafted Stingley Jr. And then the next year they're picking that quarterback and they're picking some wide receivers. And so obviously they already have Olave there. They might keep Kamara. Who knows? And maybe he could get traded in the offseason. But I feel like they're a little bit content offensively. I think they want to build defensively again. So I think that Aaron Glenn is going to be the guy at head coach there, filling in for the Saints.
I love that pick, and in fact, I love it so much, I wrote down the same name. So we are both aligned. I think Aaron Glenn is destined for the Saints. He worked for the Saints for 5 years. He played for them as a player for one season at the end of his playing career. So he has history with the Saints. And the Saints have always kind of been known as a team that likes to bring in, not internally per se, because they do like to do that, but people that they know and they're comfortable with. And I think Aaron Glenn, who has shown success now with Detroit, having loads of people on IR and being injured, has led still a top 15 defense. So I think that is a great play there. I know they did just have a defensive guy, but I think they stick with it. They want to get back to that identity that they used to have years and years ago. So I agree. Aaron Glenn, new Saints coach. We are both aligned there. Moving to the next team, the New York Jets. And this is the one where I think they go in a different direction. They've had such a poor offense over the last handful of years, like very bad. They've had a great defense though, so I think they're going to dive into the offense this time. They get Joe Brady from the Bills. He's the Bills' offensive coordinator, and he becomes their next head coach. They steal him from in the division. He is, a Bills rival, a guy who has or been a part of Josh Allen's one of his best seasons in his career. And I think that whatever quarterback ends up being on the Jets, I don't know if it's Rodgers. It could be a rookie. It could be like Sam Darnold. You never know. Somebody, I think it might be new, and that's one of the hardest things to decide right now is the Jets starting quarterback next year. But with the offensive mind like Joe Brady, I think they're going to go for it. And I think, unfortunately, I don't think Joe Brady's one of the best candidates in this cycle. But the way I look at it is I don't know if the Jets team is a place a lot of coaches are wanting to go to due to ownership. The quarterback position is a question mark. But Joe Brady will take his opportunity as an offensive mind, and the Jets will pick him up as their next coach.
Yeah, Justin, I definitely like this. I think, for me, I think the Jets are going to definitely go offensively there because that's why I have them going with Todd Monken. I feel like, with Todd Monken's coach history there, he was the Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator this year, or the past 2 seasons, really. Lamar was able to win MVP. And then, this year, Derrick Henry was absolutely phenomenal. And then, the years before that, he was at Georgia winning, national championships there and was able to make Stetson Bennett, one of the best Georgia Bulldogs of all time there.
Right.
And before that, he was on the Cleveland Browns. He was an offensive coordinator, not bad of a coordinator that year. And so, looking at what the Browns were able to do, a running attack led by Nick Chubb, and so Monken's been there, and I think that the Jets are going to want to go offensively now. And they've had some defensive coaches there. They've had some duds, so they're going to want to hit on Todd Monken.
Yeah, I actually really like that idea. Monken has been under under the radar, but he's been such a great piece for the Baltimore Ravens offense. I know Lamar has always been great since he started. He won an MVP without Monken, but then there were some years in the middle where they were struggling. Obviously, there was injuries, but then Monken shows up, an MVP, and essentially another MVP season. Because to be honest, I think Lamar's played better this season than he even did last year, and he won the MVP last year. So I think Monken could be a great idea. I think that we're kind of in a similar wavelength where the Jets are going to want a guy that can build quarterbacks. And both of these guys have shown this year that they can do so. So I think that is a good play there. Moving to the next team, a team that to me always kind of picks the oddball, but the one that's kind of not what everybody expects. So obviously you had Antonio Pierce. He gets fired. He's obviously had no head coaching experience. But then before that, you had Josh McDaniel, who was a fail of a head coach in years prior and was kind of an oddball play to me. I was like, I don't think that was going to work out. And then before that, they had Gruden, who was coming from TV. So it's all been kind of messy. But I think with Brady in charge here, I think that they're going to start looking at in a smarter angle. And a guy that has really had success, has won a Super Bowl, and he was so good for so long. And I'm talking about Pete Carroll. I think Pete Carroll returns to the head coaching uh, gigs. And obviously he was in Seattle. He moves down a little bit south on the West Coast to the Raiders. Obviously, his former running back phenom Marshawn Lynch is a big piece in the Raiders area. And then Brady's obviously has that influence there. But I think that they give it to Pete Carroll, who said he wants to come back and coach. They don't have the best roster or anything like that, but I think Carroll can build this team up and try to convince Max Crosby to stay. I know that's a lot of rumors that he might be wanting to get out, but when you get a guy like Pete Carroll as your head coach, I think he might stay, and I think that's a big play for the Raiders.
Yeah, Justin, I like that choice a lot. I've also heard a story that Pete Carroll is big rivals with Jim Harbaugh. There, Jim Harbaugh is the coach for the Chargers. Not only that, it was a Stafford USC rivalry for a little bit, and then it was a Seattle Seahawk and 49er rivalry with those two head coaches. And so now that could be a rivalry renewed. But Pete Carroll will be labeled again, the oldest head coach, I believe, in the National Football if he were to return. For me, I'm gonna go Bid Johnson. Now, here's what I'm thinking with the Raiders, right? They're picking what, sixth overall. I'm looking at the draft order,
Mhm.
and I think that they're going to be aggressive on draft night, round one there, because there could be a chance that, well, I think there's a big chance you can agree that Cam Ward and Shador Sanders will both be taken off by picks
Yeah.
3 to 5, and the Raiders are picking six. So I think that Tom Brady and this ownership is going to need to trade up, and he's going to need to have his aggressive offensive head coach for Tom Brady to feel good about whoever they're drafting that quarterback, because the Raiders need quarterback, Justin. They
Oh, yeah.
desperately need it bad because they'd have something with Brock Bowers. If they can hit on running back, they can keep Jacoby Myers, have pretty decent wide receivers. They're not all too crazy, but I think they can get one in the second round. But they need a quarterback bad. And I think that Tom Brady's going to feel really good about draft night and trading up if he's sitting there next to an offensive guru, and that is Ben Johnson. And I think that they're all going to feel good on night one when Tom Brady's with his offensive coach and the offensive coaches. They're on the phone calling their next quarterback there. It could be Shador. It could be Cam Ward. It could even, they could make a splash and just say, you know what, we want the guy to Bama. Give us Jalen Milroe. So something like that could happen night one. But I feel like it's got to be Ben Johnson as the head coach there.
That would be super cool to see Ben Johnson. And wherever Ben Johnson goes, my stock in that team and players on that team are going to rise tremendously. And especially if because you're right, they need a quarterback very badly. So I think that pairing Ben Johnson with a rookie could be really good for that rookie and help the Raiders tremendously. So I like that there. Moving to the next team, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. They had Doug Peterson over the last few years. Before that, the little Urban Meyer stint. So it hasn't been really great for the Jaguars. I think it was kind of strange because last year it was like, this is the Jaguars' year. They made the playoffs. They won that game. They came back on the Chargers. We're like, wow, this might be Doug Peterson, Philadelphia Eagles 2.0. But then things just went to the crapper, and it didn't look good all year. We were expecting. I thought it might happen during the season. They waited till the season ended. But the Jaguars to me are a interesting team. Like, you got Lawrence, you have Brian Thomas, who was phenomenal, Christian Kirk solid, Evan Ingram. The duo of running backs are both solidly okay, and then the defense is the one that's kind of meh. But I think that they're going to look at this offseason and they're going to be like, we need a coach that can really make this offense dangerous. And I think they do it by looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tree with Liam Cohen. Last year was Dave Canales. Everybody loved what he did with Baker Mayfield, and it turned into him getting a head coaching gig in Carolina. And at the end of the year, Carolina looked promising. So I think with the success of that and the way Tampa Bay looked with Dave Canales, they thought everything was going to fall off a cliff. It didn't with Liam Cohen. It looked just as good, if not better. And so I think Liam Cohen, with his offensive mind, will be the next Jaguars coach.
Yeah, hashtag keep Liam Cohen in Florida there, Justin.
That's right.
And I think he's going to help things out with Jacksonville, right? They had no running game this season. And the first half of the season, right? The first 5 to 6 games, it was a little bit of a head scratcher, but then it was like, oh wow, this Tank Bigsby guy, he's going to be good, Justin. I remember that overseas game against the Patriots. He had about 30 something fantasy points there. He had 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. And we were thinking like, man, okay, well Travis Etienne is in Dubsville. This guy Bigsby is going to be a guy that we can start in every day. We were thinking that he was going to be this year's, Bucky Irvin, right? This like breakout running back in his first or second year. But Liam Cohen was able to develop Bucky Irvin, and then he was, at some points there was like 2 or 3 games this year that it was Sean Tucker, right? And then there were some points where it was Rashad White. So I feel like that gets a lot of credit because when Canales was there, it was just strictly Rashad White. They weren't really looking at the running backs. So Liam Cohen did something this year that was able to help Baker Mayfield's game. Not to mention he was able to utilize this offense whenever Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were missing games. So that to me, and then Baker Mayfield, right? We love fantasy football here. Baker Mayfield was a league winner this year in fantasy football, right? I mean, obviously he didn't play so well in that wild card game, but still, though, the fact that you're able to lead your quarterback and have him play efficient football, only 3 completions in the wild card round. This guy Liam Cohen knows how to coach some clean football, and Jacksonville needs that, right? I mean, and what Justin, the wonders that he could do with Brian Thomas, I would really, really love to see Liam Cohen there. Not so much because I'm a Texans fan, but as far as fantasy, I would love to see what he would do with those skill position players.
Yeah, and like to me also, like Cade Otton had his career year with Liam Cohen this year. We didn't really see Cade Otton much last year do anything. McMillan had, a bunch of touchdowns as a TD magnet as a
Yeah.
rookie. Um, but yeah, I think this team is going to look for that offensive guru mind. And I literally have a carousel trying to pick between Cohen, Monken, and Brady. Obviously, we talked about Monken and Brady already going to the Jets. But I see one of those three guys, at least two of them getting jobs as head coaches because of their offensive seasons that they put on. But yes, now moving to the last team that we're going to discuss today, and it is the Dallas Cowboys. This one obviously is going through the news, and a lot of people are excited, and I'm hearing different names every few hours. But actually, I'm going to pick a name that I haven't heard linked to this team, but I think is a guy that can give them the necessary juice. Um, and it's Brian Flores of the Minnesota Vikings. This one's a little bit more of a reach because I've heard a lot of other names, but I think the way Flores has done with Minnesota, especially that defensive line, he has done such good things with them. And then you have Micah, and Demarcus Lawrence. And I think, unfortunately for the Cowboys, due to Jerry Jones and the way he runs his team, there's not going to be the best options running towards the Cowboys. No Ben Johnsons or Aaron Glenn's. I don't think that's going to happen. But Brian Flores, who used to be a coach of the Dolphins, and he had some successful times with Miami. Nothing was too perfect, but I think that this is going to be where Dallas goes. They've had an offensive coach in the last few years, and they had good. Last year was really good for them, but I think they want to get back to having that star defense like they had with Dan Quinn, and Brian Flores will bring it.
Yeah, Justin, I really would enjoy that. The thing is just the recent criticism with Tua, and there was just a couple other players that would really had not so nice things to say about Brian Flores. So um, with Jerry, it's really how can you charm him? How can you get on his good side? Can you be his friend? Is this a guy that he can go, that you're good with him just walking into your office and just having him openly criticize you? Are you good with that? If you have team success, are you good with not getting full credit? So that's one thing that I'm concerned of is someone like Brian Flores' nature, or really anybody, not just Brian Flores, but anybody. Are you good with that? With dealing with a at sometimes incompetent owner who's not really all there at times, who is full of himself. So that's good. I like Brian Flores. Now, if that wasn't a thing, sure, I love Brian Flores. But this makes it hard for this team because for me, I'm going to go with Robert Saleh. I feel like Robert Saleh has a cooler personality, more calm personality, as to where Brian Flores. Although I would like to see that defense under Brian Flores. I would love Michael Parsons as the favorite, though, for Defensive Player of the Year, Justin, if Brian Flores were to become head coach. But I would like it a little bit, his odds the same as Robert Saleh were to become the head coach. But Justin, where there's smoke, there is fire. These talks with Deion Sanders, I don't know, Justin. I mean, there's something, fishy there because you get a quote from Deion. He says he hangs up the phone and he starts to think about it. But then he likes what he has in Colorado. But Justin, that's kind of been a thing in the past where some coaches are like, nope, I'm not leaving, for the pros, and then they leave for the pros. It's like
Right.
that was kind of a thing with Harbaugh for a little bit. He was like, I'm good here in Michigan, and even last year after they won the championship, he was like, nah. I think there was a little thing where he's like, I think I'm gonna run it back. I'm thinking I love these kids, and then next thing you know, he's signing with the Chargers. So I don't know, Justin. Deion's got some things to think about. His sons are now gone. His ultimate utility player is gone, and so I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where these guys land.
Yeah, I mean the Deion Sanders talk. I feel like we do got to dive into it just a little bit. I could see it. I could see it. Everybody was crazy shocked when he left Jackson State. How could he do that? And then he goes to Colorado, and then now with his son's leaving, his prize Travis Hunter also going to the league. It's like, what if he goes to Dallas and then with Dallas like trades up for Travis Hunter, and then you got like Travis Hunter and CeeDee Lamb? Like that'd be something. I don't know. Like we're going all over the place, but the Deion Sanders talk it's seemingly real. This week we've been hearing a lot of it. Obviously, I don't know if that'd be a great head coaching hire. I don't think it would, but that would bring in some serious dough for the Cowboys and for Jerry Jones. So I think if you see that happen, Jerry Jones is still trying to pull in that money. But as for your primary one, Robert Saleh, I could see it too because I feel like he got an unfair deal with the Jets, and he had really good defensive years too. So you could look at it in that way. If they want to build up a defense, I think Saleh would be a good piece to do it. And if you look at it, when Saleh got fired, the Jets defense really kind of fell apart this season. So I think that's a fair point to pick. I think that's a name that not many people are talking about. So, but yes, that is our head coaching predictions for 2025. 6 available coaching positions. And by the time you're seeing this, hopefully none have gone through, or if they have, hopefully we're right. And over the next couple of weeks, come back and check this episode, see how we did. We will definitely be checking. And if you have your own predictions, drop them below in the comments. But thank you guys for listening. This was so much fun to do because the hiring of your next head coach for all these teams changes the course of this team for this year, next year, maybe the next 10 years. So a lot's on the line. But thank you guys for watching. And Genoa, send us out.
Yes, Justin, definitely franchise altering. But thank you guys for watching. Well, it's interesting to see if one of these teams will be, where we're at right now in the playoffs. Let's see which teams kind of makes a jump, kind of from worst to first there with their new head coach. It's going to be very interesting. There, Dewey Nation. Thanks for watching. We love you guys, and as always, peace.
Peace.